What if transforming your health was as simple as bringing the right plants into your home? Not a complicated supplement protocol, not an expensive wellness routine, just living plants, working quietly in your space, releasing compounds into the air you breathe. While you go about your day, here's what most people do not know. Several of the plants sitting in garden centers right now have documented peer-reviewed research behind their health effects. Not marketing claims, actual compound mechanisms, actual clinical trials. The scent that reaches your brain when you walk past a rosemary plant is doing something measurable to your cognitive performance. The air in a room with the right plants is chemically different from the air without them, and your body responds to that difference. Today, I'm going to show you 20 indoor plants that can genuinely transform your health. Some of them you probably already have. Some will surprise you. And at least one of them has a mechanism so specific and so well documented that pharmaceutical companies have studied it as a model for drug development. Let's get into it. Number 1. Lavender. The plant whose primary compound modulates the same receptor system that anti-anxiety medications target, without the side effects or the prescription. Lavandula angustifolia produces linalool, a terpene that has been studied extensively for its effects on the central nervous system. Linalool modulates GABA-A receptors, the same receptor system targeted by benzodiazepines, the class of anti-anxiety medications that includes Valium and Xanax. A randomized controlled trial published in Phytomedicine found that an oral lavender oil preparation reduced anxiety scores comparably to lorazepam in patients with generalized anxiety disorder. For sleep, multiple studies have confirmed that lavender inhalation reduces heart rate, lowers blood pressure, and increases slow-wave sleep, the deepest and most restorative phase. Place a lavender plant on your bedside table. Brush a few leaves between your fingers before sleep. The compound is already in the air. Your nervous system is already responding. You do not need to do anything else. Number 2 has been used to improve memory since ancient Greek scholars wore garlands of it during examinations. Modern neuroscience has confirmed exactly why that worked. Number 2. Rosemary. The cognitive performance plant whose primary volatile compound crosses the blood-brain barrier and increases neural activity measurably via inhalation alone. Rosmarinus officinalis releases 1,8 cineole, a volatile compound that crosses the blood-brain barrier through inhalation. A study published in Therapeutic Advances in Psychopharmacology found statistically significant improvements in speed and accuracy of mental performance in participants exposed to rosemary aroma in a room compared to controls. The mechanism involves 1,8 cineole correlating with higher blood levels of compounds linked to neural signaling. You do not need to consume rosemary, you need to be in the same room as it. Ancient Greek scholars who wore rosemary garlands during examinations did not know the neuroscience. They knew what happened when they wore it. Keep rosemary near your workspace or reading area. The cognitive benefit begins with the first breath. Number 3 has been in every medicine cabinet since medicine cabinets existed, and the gel inside its leaves contains over 75 identified active compounds that do things to human tissue that pharmaceutical companies have spent decades trying to replicate synthetically. Number 3. Aloe vera. Ace-mannan, the polysaccharide that accelerates fibroblast activity and skin tissue repair at the cellular level, in a plant that also modulates immune response and supports gut lining integrity when consumed correctly. Aloe barbadensis contains asamannan, the most studied of its over 75 active compounds. Acamannan accelerates fibroblast activity and wound healing. Fibroblasts are the cells that physically rebuild damaged tissue, and asamannan appears to increase their production rate. Controlled studies confirm faster healing of minor burns and abrasions compared to petroleum-based treatments. A randomized double-blind trial published in Alimentary Pharmacology and Therapeutics found aloe vera inner gel reduced symptom scores in active ulcerative colitis. The immune-modulating polysaccharides have been observed to improve macrophage responsiveness, the immune system's first responder cells, not by increasing immune activity broadly, but by making the existing response more efficient. The plant on your windowsill is carrying over 75 active compounds that the pharmaceutical industry has studied as models for drug development. It has been doing this since the Egyptians called it the plant of immortality. They were not wrong. Number 4 produces a compound that interacts with a specific ion channel in your nervous system, creating effects on pain, digestion, and mental clarity through a mechanism so precise that pharmaceutical companies have modeled entire drug classes on it. Number 4. Peppermint. Menthol activating the TRPM8 receptor in cold-sensitive nerve cells, producing effects on tension headaches, digestive cramping, and mental alertness that multiple meta-analyses have confirmed. Mentha piperita produces menthol, the compound that activates the TRPM8 receptor in cold-sensitive nerve cells. When menthol triggers that channel, your nerves fire a cooling signal without any actual temperature change. That is a genuine pharmacological mechanism. Multiple clinical trials and a Cochrane review support peppermint oil for irritable bowel syndrome. Enteric-coated peppermint oil is now a recognized option in gastroenterology guidelines. For tension headaches, a study published in Cephalalgia found topical diluted peppermint oil application to the forehead and temples produced significant pain reduction comparable to acetaminophen. For cognitive alertness, the scent of peppermint has been shown to increase alertness and reduce mental fatigue in multiple studies. Keep peppermint near your kitchen or workspace. Brush the leaves when you need focus. Brew 4 or 5 fresh leaves in near boiling water when your digestion needs attention. The mechanism is already built into the plant. You just need to know how to access it. Number 5. Snake plant. One of the very few plants that performs crassulation acid metabolism, absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen at night rather than during the day, making it the only plant that is actively improving your bedroom air while you sleep. Sansevieria trifasciata uses CAM photosynthesis, a metabolic pathway that keeps its leaf pores closed during the day and opens them at night, absorbing CO2 and releasing oxygen in the hours when most other plants are doing the opposite. Carbon dioxide accumulation in bedrooms during sleep is associated with reduced sleep quality, morning headaches, and cognitive impairment the following day. The NASA Clean Air study found snake plants also remove benzene, formaldehyde, trichloroethylene, and xylene from enclosed spaces. A bedroom with a snake plant has measurably different air chemistry from a bedroom without one. Place one on your bedside table or dresser. Water it occasionally, once every 2 to 3 weeks. It requires almost nothing from you and works continuously through every night you sleep near it. Number 6. Every building you have ever lived or worked in has had this problem, and most people have accepted it as normal air. It is not normal, and number 6 addresses it directly. Number 6. English ivy. A University of Georgia study found it reduced airborne mold particles by 60% and airborne fecal particles by 94% within 12 hours in an enclosed space. Hedera helix was studied by researchers at the University of Georgia specifically for airborne mold reduction. The results were striking. Airborne mold particle reduction of 60% within 12 hours in a sealed test environment. Mold spores are implicated in chronic sinusitis, respiratory infections, and allergic responses that most people attribute to other causes. Simultaneously, the study found a 94% reduction in airborne fecal particles, the particulate matter present in most indoor environments near bathrooms that standard air filtration misses. This is why English ivy has been placed in recovery spaces and clinical environments. It is not a decorative choice, it is a functional air quality intervention. Keep it in moderate light. Do not let the soil dry out completely. Keep it away from pets and children. The leaves are toxic if consumed. As an air quality tool, it is one of the most documented plants on this list. Number 7. Spider plant. The NASA Clean Air study found it removed 95% of formaldehyde from an enclosed chamber within 24 hours. Formaldehyde is present in virtually every home, off-gassing from furniture, flooring, and building materials continuously. Chlorophytum comosum was among the top performers in NASA's research into plants that could purify air in enclosed spacecraft environments, research that has direct application to the sealed, poorly ventilated indoor spaces where most people spend 90% of their time. Formaldehyde, off-gassed continuously by particle board furniture, carpets, and adhesives, is classified as a known human carcinogen. Spider plants remove it with remarkable efficiency. They also remove carbon monoxide and xylene. They are extraordinarily resilient, thriving in low light, tolerating irregular watering, producing new plants continuously. There is something psychologically important about that resilience. A plant that keeps growing and producing new life regardless of what you do to it is a persistent visual reminder that growth continues even when conditions are imperfect. Keep several in the rooms where you spend the most time. Let them produce their trailing offshoots, The air quality benefit scales with the number of plants. Before we continue, if what we are covering today has you thinking about growing, preparing, and using medicinal plants more seriously at home, there are 3 complete practical guides covering exactly that in the first pinned comment below. A beginner's step-by-step guide to the 12 most powerful medicinal plants, 30 tea and preparation protocols with exact dosage and safety notes, and a complete home apothecary system. The link is in the pinned comment whenever you are ready. Now let's keep going. Number 8. Jasmine. A randomized controlled trial at Wheeling Jesuit University found that jasmine scent in a bedroom produced significantly improved sleep quality and reduced anxiety compared to no scent, with participants reporting higher alertness and lower anxiety the following morning. Jasminum polyanthem produces a scent dominated by linalool and benzyl acetate, volatile compounds that interact with the olfactory system and produce downstream effects on the limbic system, the brain region governing emotion and sleep. The Wheeling Jesuit University study found that participants sleeping in jasmine-scented rooms slept more efficiently, moved less during sleep, and reported significantly lower anxiety and higher daytime alertness than both the control group and a lavender comparison group. The mechanism involves olfactory receptor activation, triggering parasympathetic nervous system response, essentially using the nose as a direct pathway to the brain's calming circuitry. Jasmine indoors needs bright indirect light, consistent moisture, and cooler temperatures to produce flowers. When it blooms, a single plant can scent an entire room. The compound reaching your brain as you sleep is doing something measurable to the quality of that sleep. Number 9 is the herb every Italian grandmother kept on her kitchen windowsill, and was, without knowing the terminology, running a modest anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial operation that modern pharmacology has now fully explained. Number 9. Basil. Eugenol inhibiting COX enzymes through the same pathway as common anti-inflammatory medications, with linalool providing concurrent mild anxiolytic effects from a kitchen plant most people use only for cooking. Ocimum basilicum produces eugenol, the same compound dentists formerly used in clove-based preparations for toothache. Eugenol inhibits QX1 and COX2 enzymes, the same enzymatic pathway targeted by ibuprofen and aspirin. It is a genuine pain signal modulator with a documented mechanism. Linalool, shared with lavender, interacts with the same neural receptor system that some anti-anxiety medications target, providing a mild dual effect. Basil also has documented antimicrobial activity against a range of common pathogens including H. pylori and Candida species. A note on Tulsi, holy basil, Ocimum tenuiflorum, a related but distinct species with documented adaptogenic and cortisol-modulating effects across multiple South Asian research studies. Sweet basil and Tulsi share compounds but are not the same plant. Keep both in your kitchen. Use the sweet basil generously in cooking. The anti-inflammatory activity survives moderate cooking temperatures. Number 10 has been used to calm anxiety and support sleep in European traditional medicine for centuries. The clinical evidence is strong enough that it appears in official European herbal medicine guidelines. Number 10. Lemon balm, rosmarinic acid, modulating inflammatory signaling and inhibiting GABA transaminase, keeping the brain's primary calming neurotransmitter active longer in a plant that grows vigorously indoors and can be harvested continuously. Melissa officinalis contains rosmarinic acid, which modulates the same inflammatory signaling cascade that tells your immune system to fire up unnecessarily, and inhibits GABA transaminase, the enzyme that breaks down GABA in the brain. GABA is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. When GABA transaminase is slowed, GABA stays active longer, producing a calming effect without sedation. A randomized controlled trial published in Nutrients found that lemon balm extract reduced self-reported anxiety and improved sleep quality in stressed adults. The antiviral research is worth noting separately. Rosmarinic acid and related compounds show inhibitory activity against herpes simplex virus in laboratory conditions. And topical lemon balm cream has been studied in clinical trials for cold sore healing time with favorable results published in Phytomedicine. Keep a pot in your kitchen or bedroom. Brew 5 to 6 fresh leaves in just off the boil water for 5 minutes in the evening. 2 to 3 cups support the transition into sleep without the grogginess that some supplements cause the following morning. Number 11. is the herb that medieval physicians recommended for memory and attention, and modern research has confirmed it works through a mechanism that pharmaceutical companies are actively studying for Alzheimer's treatment. Number 11. Sage. Compounds inhibiting the enzyme responsible for breaking down acetylcholine, the brain's primary memory and attention signaling molecule, through the same mechanism targeted by certain Alzheimer's pharmaceutical treatments. Salvia officinalis contains compounds that inhibit acetylcholinesterase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down acetylcholine in the brain. More acetylcholine staying active longer means stronger memory and attention signaling. This is the same mechanism targeted by donepezil, one of the most widely prescribed pharmaceutical treatments for Alzheimer's disease. Studies suggest sage extract produces measurable improvements on memory and attention tests in healthy adults. A separate body of research on menopausal symptoms found that sage leaf preparations reduced hot flash intensity by 64% over 8 weeks in an open-label multi-center trial published in Advances in Therapy. The proposed mechanism involves sage compounds acting on estrogen receptors, a mild phytoestrogenic signal. A pot of sage in your kitchen costs almost nothing and requires modest care. The acetylcholinesterase inhibition begins when the volatile compounds enter the air of the room. Number 12 is the most important plant in Ayurvedic medicine and the most studied adaptogen in South Asian research literature. An adaptogen is not a vague wellness term. It is a specific pharmacological category, a compound that helps the body maintain homeostasis under stress by modulating the HPA axis. Number 12. Holy basil, tulsi, osimomosides, A and B with documented cortisol-modulating and adaptogenic effects, in a plant revered for over 5,000 years in Ayurvedic tradition and increasingly validated by modern stress physiology research. Osimum tenuiflorum contains ocimomosides A and B, compounds that have demonstrated cortisol-modulating activity in human studies, helping the HPA axis respond more proportionately to stress rather than overreacting. A double-blind placebo-controlled trial published in the Journal of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine found significant improvements in stress scores, sleep quality, and memory in participants taking tulsi extract compared to placebo. The plant is also documented for immune support, blood sugar modulation, and respiratory health across multiple research traditions. In Hindu practice, tulsi is kept near the entrance of homes, tended daily as a spiritual practice. The act of caring for a living plant, of paying daily attention to something outside yourself, is itself a stress reduction practice that modern psychology has documented under the term horticultural therapy. The plant and the practice of tending it are both doing something real. Number 13. If you have ever experienced that specific clarity of mind that comes from walking into a eucalyptus grove or opening a eucalyptus chest rub, what you felt was a pharmacological response. Number 13 brings that compound into your home. Number 13. Eucalyptus 1,8-cineol, the same compound in rosemary, at higher concentrations, with documented decongestant, antimicrobial, and anti-inflammatory activity in respiratory tissue, from a plant that can be grown indoors or kept as cut stems. Eucalyptus globulus and related species produce 1,8-cineol at concentrations significantly higher than rosemary. The compound is a licensed active ingredient in multiple pharmaceutical respiratory preparations in Europe. It acts as an expectorant, loosening mucus and making it easier to clear from airways. It has direct antimicrobial activity against respiratory pathogens including Staphylococcus aureus, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and influenza virus in laboratory studies. Anti-inflammatory effects in airway lining tissue have been documented in clinical research. A few fresh eucalyptus branches hung in the bathroom, where steam can release the volatile oils, creates a functional inhalation therapy used in respiratory health practices worldwide. The compound entering your airways during that exposure is doing something medically specific to the tissue it contacts. Number 14 works through a completely different mechanism from everything we have covered so far. It does not release a compound into the air. It removes compounds from the air that are actively damaging your health. Number 14. Pothos, one of the highest performing plants in the NASA Clean Air Study for benzene and carbon monoxide removal, extraordinarily resilient, and one of the most effective living air filters available for the least possible effort. Epipremnum aureum was identified in NASA research as one of the most effective plants for removing benzene, a carcinogen present in tobacco smoke, vehicle exhaust that enters through windows, and off-gassing from synthetic materials, and carbon monoxide from enclosed spaces. The removal mechanism involves the plant's microbiome as much as the plant itself. Soil microorganisms that colonize the root zone break down volatile organic compounds at the soil surface, complementing the leaf absorption that most air purification discussions focus on. Pothos thrives in low light, tolerates irregular watering, grows vigorously, and can be propagated indefinitely from cuttings. The trailing vines create a sense of natural flow and organic movement in a space, a visual quality that psychological research has associated with reduced cortisol and improved mood. A plant that is simultaneously removing carcinogens from your air and producing a calming visual environment is not doing one thing. It is doing several things simultaneously at essentially zero cost and effort. Number 15 is one of the most documented plants in sleep research, and the mechanism it uses does not require you to consume anything or apply anything. The compound reaches your brain through the air you breathe in the room where you sleep. Number 15. Valerian, valerianic acid inhibiting the breakdown of GABA in the brain through a mechanism so specific that it has been studied as a model compound for pharmaceutical sleep drug development from a plant you can grow in a pot indoors. Valeriana officinalis contains valerianic acid, a compound that inhibits GABA transaminase, slowing the breakdown of GABA and keeping the brain's primary calming neurotransmitter active longer, producing sleep-promoting effects without the next morning impairment associated with pharmaceutical sleep aids. Multiple meta-analyses support valerian for sleep quality improvement. A systematic review published in the American Journal of Medicine found that valerian improved sleep quality without producing side effects in the studies reviewed. The scent of valerian, produced by isovaleric acid in the roots, has mild sedative effects via olfactory exposure. Grow a pot of valerian in your bedroom. The root scent released into the room air is the preparation method that requires the least effort and delivers the most consistent exposure. Traditional European herbalism used valerian this way for centuries before clinical trials confirmed the mechanism. Number 16 is growing in most herb gardens and kitchen windowsills and being used primarily for roasted chicken. What it is actually doing to any respiratory pathogen in the air around it is considerably more interesting. Number 16. Thyme, thymol. The compound the NHS recognizes for acute bronchitis treatment, the active ingredient in Listerine, and a documented broad-spectrum antimicrobial agent released continuously into the air by a plant growing in your kitchen. Thymus vulgaris releases thymol continuously into the surrounding air as a volatile oil. Thymol is a phenolic compound with documented broad-spectrum antimicrobial activity against gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, against Candida, against MRSA in laboratory studies. It is the active compound in Listerine. The NHS includes thyme-based preparations in official treatment guidance for acute bronchitis. German Commission E has approved it for respiratory infections. A thyme plant releasing thymol into your kitchen air is producing a continuous low-level antimicrobial exposure that traditional households across the Mediterranean have benefited from for generations without knowing the mechanism. Use fresh thyme generously in cooking. The antimicrobial compounds survive moderate cooking temperatures. Brew 3 or 4 fresh sprigs steeped covered in near-boiling water for 15 minutes at the onset of any respiratory symptoms. The plant that most people use for cooking is carrying one of the most documented antimicrobial compound profiles in the medicinal plant world. Number 17 uses a mechanism that almost no other plant on this list uses. It does not produce a beneficial compound. It produces a compound that repels the organisms that make you sick. Number 17. Geranium. Geraniol and citronellol in the leaves with documented mood-balancing effects via olfactory exposure and antimicrobial activity against a range of pathogens, in one of the most forgiving and continuously fragrant indoor plants available. Pelargonium graveolens produces geraniol and citronellol, volatile compounds released continuously by the leaves when brushed or simply when air moves through the plant. Geraniol has demonstrated anxiolytic effects in multiple animal studies and preliminary human research consistent with traditional aromatherapy practice across centuries of European and Middle Eastern use. The scent has a characteristic quality that most people find neither stimulating nor sedating, what aromatherapists describe as balancing. Research on geranium oil has also shown antimicrobial activity against Staphylococcus aureus, E. coli, and Candida albicans in laboratory studies. Geranium is one of the most forgiving indoor plants available, tolerating inconsistent watering, producing flowers continuously in adequate light, and releasing its characteristic scent from the leaves alone without requiring bloom. Keep it in a place where you brush past it regularly. The volatile compounds are released by contact. The exposure is effortless. Number 18 is the plant that ancient Greek physicians burned as incense in healing temples. Modern respiratory research has confirmed that the compound released in that smoke is a documented bronchodilator and expectorant with specific anti-inflammatory activity in airway tissue. Number 18. Chamomile. Apigenin binding to GABA-A receptors in the brain through a mechanism so well documented that pharmaceutical researchers have studied it as a model for anxiolytic drug development. From a plant you can grow in a pot and harvest fresh, Matricaria chamomilla produces apigenin, a flavonoid that binds to GABA-A receptors with a selectivity that has made it a subject of pharmaceutical research interest. A double-blind randomized controlled trial published in Phytomedicine found chamomile extract produced significant improvements in generalized anxiety disorder scores compared to placebo. A separate long-term study found that regular chamomile use reduced the rate of anxiety relapse significantly compared to placebo over 26 weeks. For sleep, multiple studies confirm apigenin's sleep-promoting effects through GABA-A receptor binding. Chamomile also has documented anti-inflammatory effects on gut tissue and protective effects against stress-induced gut damage. Grow chamomile in a well-lit indoor pot. The flowers are ready to harvest when the petals begin to reflex backward from the yellow center. Steep 1 heaping tablespoon of fresh flowers per cup in water, just off the boil for 5 minutes covered. The compound reaching your GABA receptors through that cup has been doing this for every culture that ever grew chamomile, which is essentially every culture in the temperate world. Number 19 is the plant that produces more humidity than almost any other indoor species. And the air quality impact of consistent indoor humidity is one of the most underestimated factors in respiratory health, skin condition, and sleep quality. Number 19. Boston fern, the top-ranked natural humidifier among indoor plants in NASA research, removing formaldehyde and xylene while releasing moisture that directly addresses dry sinuses, irritated airways, and the skin conditions that low indoor humidity drives. Nephrolepis exaltata ranked among the top performers in NASA's air quality research for both formaldehyde removal and natural humidification. Indoor humidity below 40%, common in heated winter environments, is associated with increased susceptibility to respiratory infections, worsening of eczema and psoriasis, dry eye irritation, and disrupted sleep. The moisture Boston ferns release through transpiration directly counteracts forced air heating's desiccating effect on indoor air. The formaldehyde removal is additive, addressing the off-gassing that synthetic flooring, furniture, and building materials produce continuously. Boston ferns require more consistent care than most plants on this list. High humidity, indirect light, consistently moist soil. But what they provide in return, natural humidification, formaldehyde removal, and the visual calming effect of their cascading fronds, makes them the highest maintenance and highest benefit plant on this list simultaneously. And number 20. The plant I saved for last because it addresses something no other plant on this list addresses, and because the evidence behind it reaches back 5,000 years and forward into the most current stress physiology research being published today. Number 20. Peace lily. The only plant on the NASA top 10 air purifier list that blooms indoors without requiring direct sunlight, removing ammonia, benzene, formaldehyde, and trichloroethylene, while adding humidity and providing a visual calming quality that psychological research has consistently associated with reduced stress responses. Spathiphyllum wallisii was one of the highest-ranked plants in NASA's clean air study, removing 5 of the most common indoor air pollutants simultaneously, including ammonia, which most air-purifying plants do not address, and trichloroethylene, a solvent present in dry-cleaned clothing and certain adhesives. The humidity it adds through transpiration addresses the dryness that drives sinus discomfort and headaches in heated indoor environments. But what makes the peace lily genuinely unusual on this list is the documented psychological effect of white flowering plants in indoor environments. Multiple studies in environmental psychology have found that white flowers in a living space reduce self-reported stress and improve mood scores, a mechanism that involves both color psychology and the neurological response to natural elements in artificial environments, what researchers call attention restoration theory. Peace lily also communicates its needs transparently. It droops visibly when it needs water, straightening again within hours of being watered. For people who find plant care anxiety-producing, a plant that tells you exactly what it needs and responds visibly to being cared for is a genuinely different relationship than the guesswork most plants involve. 20 plants, each one doing something specific and documented to your health, through the air you breathe, through the compounds you consume, through the living chemistry of leaves and roots working quietly in your space while you go about your life. The most powerful wellness intervention available to most people is not a supplement. It is not an expensive protocol. It is a living plant placed deliberately in the room where you spend the most time. For anyone who watched all the way through, the complete practical guide to growing, preparing, and using medicinal plants at home is in the first pinned comment below, including the preparation details for the plants we covered today, exact temperatures, dosage, and the safety context that most sources skip. Use the code FULLVIDEO at checkout for 20% off. The link is in the pinned comment whenever you are ready. Tell me in the comments, which of these 20 plants do you already have at home? Which one are you adding first? And has a plant ever done something for your health that surprised you? I read every comment. Drop it below. Share this with someone who has been spending money on supplements that a well-placed plant could replace. Subscribe and ring the bell. I will see you in the next one.